Hello everyone, my name is Halvey. In this video, we're going to be going over all of the differences in difficulty modes across the games in the series. First, we have Fire Emblem Gaiden, the second game in the series. Gaiden has normal mode, which is the game's standard mode and highest difficulty. Then there is a hidden easy mode that can be accessed by pressing select, start, and A on the main menu. Everything is the same in easy mode except that all experience gain is doubled. Then we have Genealogy of the Holy War, which has normal mode, that is the game's standard difficulty. Then after completing the game once, clever mode is unlocked. Everything is the same in clever mode except for the enemy AI behavior. In clever mode, the enemies are more aggressive and intelligent. Next is Thracia 776, which has just normal standard difficulty. It also has a hidden difficulty mode called Paragon mode. If you choose new game and then before choosing an empty file, if you press the button combination of right left, right left, right left, right right, you should hear a chime. Then if you press B to go back a previous screen, there should be a new option called Paragon mode. In Paragon mode, everything is the same except for all characters will have a hidden Paragon skill, which doubles their experience gain. If the character already has a Paragon skill as their personal or otherwise, the effect will stack and they'll gain 4 times experience. Then in the Binding Blade, there is normal mode, the game's standard difficulty. Then there is hard mode after completing normal mode once. In hard mode, enemies have higher stats and there are more of them, and they also seem to have smarter AI overall. Some enemies could have different inventories and different positioning. Also, the shop in the battle preps is disabled. Blazing Blade is split into 3 tails, Eliwood, Hector, and Lyn mode. Each of these tails has 2 difficulty modes, normal and hard. Lyn's normal mode acts as a tutorial with a lot of scripted events. Lyn's hard mode is unlocked after completing normal mode once. In Lyn's hard mode, the tutorials are turned off. Completing Lyn's mode also unlocks Eliwood's normal mode. Then after completing Eliwood's normal mode, Eliwood hard mode is unlocked and Hector's normal tail is unlocked. In Eliwood hard mode, promoted enemies will have higher stats. Enemy AI will typically be smarter. Hector hard mode is the most challenging difficulty in the game. All enemies will have higher stats. Some could have differing inventories, and there are more enemies as well. Also, the composition of enemies can vary greatly. In all hard modes, experience gain is reduced. Also, the number of deployment slots are reduced in many chapters. The Sacred Stones has easy mode, normal mode, and difficult mode. Easy mode includes tutorials and scripted events. Easy mode then is nearly identical to normal mode, only with some enemies could have lower stats. Normal mode turns off the tutorial, however it is still available in the in-game menu. Enemies in normal and easy mode are very weak, and there are several cases where you'll see promoted enemies having less stats than unpromoted enemies. In difficult mode, enemies are now getting to be much stronger. They also have smarter AI overall. Experience gain is reduced. Sacred Stones features a route split between Erica and Ephraim. Ephraim's route is considered to be more difficult overall. Path of Radiance offers easy mode, normal mode, and difficult mode in international versions of the game, and the Japanese release of the game had normal mode, difficult mode, and maniac mode. Easy mode was added to replace maniac mode in international releases. Easy mode has fewer enemies, and the enemies have higher levels but less stats overall, just to increase experience gain. Enemy AI will be less aggressive overall, and the experience formula is modified to give even more experience gained upon defeating enemies and just battling enemies. Easy mode also offers much more bonus experience than normal mode. Normal mode is just the game's standard difficulty. In difficult mode, enemies have higher levels and higher stats, and there are also more enemies overall. Enemies can have differing inventories and positions. Enemies will have like elixirs to replace vulneraries, and they'll just have stronger weapons overall as well. Enemies can also have more skills. As for bonus experience, the clear bonus is removed, and bonus experience from other secondary objectives is reduced, and experience gain overall is reduced. The player is given no gold at the start of the game, game compared to easy and normal mode, where we start off with 5,000 gold. Maniac mode is only in the Japanese version of the game. In Maniac mode, there are much more enemies, much stronger enemies. However, it seems like they just have overall more bulk than difficult mode enemies. Enemies having effective weapons is much more common, and it's much more common to see promoted enemies earlier on in the game. Enemies are given more skills. Experience gain and bonus experience are both reduced overall. It was removed in international versions because of its poor reception from Japanese players. Radiant Dawn offers easy, normal, and hard modes. Easy mode requires less bonus experience to level up and presents various tutorials that can be viewed anytime. Normal mode has stronger enemies, more enemies overall, and the enemies will have different inventories and positions from easy mode. They have a smarter AI overall. Some bosses even have different AI, and some chapter objectives are different. Enemies in hard mode are much stronger. Also in hard mode, the weapon triangle is not in effect, and the player cannot see enemy movement ranges, meaning they have to count out it manually. Experience gain is reduced. The amount of bonus experience awarded is reduced, and it costs more bonus experience to level up. Map affinity bonuses are disabled for both player and enemy units. Battle saves are disabled. Shadow Dragon has a normal mode, which is the standard difficulty. Normal mode starts with a prologue that explains Marth's escape from Altea, and it also provides a tutorial. Then there's hard mode, which is split up into 5 different degrees. They go from hard to brutal to savage to fiendish, and finally merciless. All of these exclude the 4 chapter prologue, so the game starts at chapter 1. The enemies in each degree get progressively stronger, and they're given higher level weapons such as silver swords much earlier. Enemies could also have forged weapons. Reinforcements appear at the start of enemy phase, allowing them to move as soon as they appear. New Mystery of the Emblem offers 4 difficulty modes at the start of the game, and then there's a single unlockable difficulty mode as well. Higher difficulties have stronger enemies with stronger equipment, and also the turn requirements for side quest chapters are more lenient the higher the difficulty is. Normal mode is the game's standard difficulty. In hard mode, enemies have higher stats and a minimum of C in all weapon levels. They can have different inventories and positions from normal mode, and there are more enemies as well. Reinforcements appear at the start of enemy phase and can move in the same turn that they appear. In Maniac mode, the enemies have even higher stats, a minimum of B in all weapon levels. They can have different inventories and positions from hard mode. There are even more enemies. Towards the end of the game, enemies can start having forged weapons. Reinforcements act the same turn they appear, and sometimes appear even earlier into the map. In Lunatic mode, enemies have yet even higher stats, max weapon levels, and are given plus 10 to their hit rates. Enemies will have higher level weapons earlier on in the game. Forged weapons then in the late game are much stronger. The breath weapons that are used by dragons have 1 to 2 range instead of just 1 range. There are more enemies in most chapters. Reinforcements act on the same turn they appear and can appear even earlier on in the chapters. The silver card and the warp staff are removed. Finally, Lunatic Reverse mode is unlocked after completing Lunatic mode once. Completing Lunatic in casual mode will only unlock Lunatic Reverse casual mode, and completing Lunatic in classic mode unlocks Lunatic Reverse on both casual and classic modes. Lunatic Reverse is identical to Lunatic, except that enemies will always strike first when attacked, even on player phase. In Awakening, normal mode is the game's standard difficulty. The first several chapters will have tutorials on the bottom screen. They can be turned off in the settings. Enemies have low stats and very rarely will have skills. However, later on, promoted enemies could have a single skill from their class tree pool, though they are limited from having stronger skills such as breaker skills and offensive skills. On normal casual, the simplified interface will be used by default instead of the full interface. In hard mode, enemies have higher stats and a minimum of C in all weapon levels. And there are just more enemies in most chapters. Reinforcements appear at the start of enemy phase and act in the same turn that they appear. Reinforcements will appear earlier on in chapters as opposed to normal mode. Unpromoted enemies can randomly have one skill from their class pool, and promoted enemies can have randomly one skill and later even two from their class trees pool. These skills could be powerful skills like the breaker skills and offensive skills. Late into the game, enemies can have forged weapons, and then very late into the game, these forged weapons can be even stronger than what the player can even have. Enemy AI is generally more aggressive. The Reeking box has its price increased from 500 in normal mode to 4,800 in hard mode. Staves award less experience than on normal mode. In lunatic mode, there are more enemies that have higher stats and max weapon levels. Reinforcements will appear at the start of enemy phase and act on the same turn, and they will appear on earlier turns. Promoted enemies will have more powerful skills, and they can have 3 or more skills from their class trees pool. Halfway through the game, all enemies will have the skill hit rate plus 10, and then later on that skill is replaced by hit rate plus 20. Enemies will have higher level weapons and forged weapons earlier on in the game, and then later on the forged weapons could be even stronger than what the player can achieve. Enemy AI is even more aggressive. Skirmishes also scale differently. Unlike in normal and hard modes where their strength scales based on the location they are summoned, lunatic mode skirmishes scale based on main story progress, how many battles the player has fought, as well as the overall strength of the player's army. This can result in skirmishes where the enemies are even stronger than those in the main chapters, to the point of eventually capping their stats. Staves award even less experience than they do on hard mode. Experience gained by repeatedly attacking a single enemy will gradually diminish until it rewards no experience at all. Skirmishes award less experience, with each attack only giving 1 point. Lunatic Plus is the highest difficulty the game offers. It is unlocked after completing Lunatic mode once. Completing Lunatic Casual will only unlock Lunatic Plus Casual, while completing Lunatic Classic will unlock Lunatic Plus on Casual and Classic. Lunatic Plus is largely identical to Lunatic, with the addition of several powerful enemy exclusive skills distributed at random. Enemies will have 2 of these additional skills alongside what they'll usually have from their class trees skill pools. In Fates, normal mode is the game's standard difficulty. The prologue and first 6 chapters offer a tutorial on the bottom screen. In Conquest, even on normal mode, enemy AI is smarter. For example, enemies will not attack a unit that they cannot deal damage to. Then, in hard mode, in all paths, enemies have higher stats as well as a minimum of C in each weapon level. There are more enemies overall. Enemies will take advantage of dual strikes more often. Experience gain is reduced overall. In Birthright, bosses are given more skills. More enemies are paired up, and several dropped items such as Master Seals and Arm Scrolls are no longer available. In Conquest, generic enemies are given more skills, even ones that their class trees don't have access to. Some enemies have their positions changed and they are more paired up. Certain dragon veins have had their effects modified. Some the enemy can use on occasion, and in some cases there are fewer dragon veins to use per chapter. In Lunatic mode, in all paths, all level ups are predetermined upon a unit's recruitment, meaning that you cannot reset for different stat growths on a level up. Enemies have max weapon levels, and experience gain is reduced overall. In Birthright, enemies have slightly more HP, but the other stats are mostly identical to that in hard mode. There are many more enemies present, and rarely enemies such as Faceless are given a few more skills and weapons, and more enemies are paired up. In Conquest, enemies have identical stats to that in hard mode, but there are more of them. Enemies will also have more dangerous skill combinations, weapons, and positions. And then late into the game, enemies will have enemy exclusive skills such as Staff Savant and Inevitable End. More enemies are paired up. Certain reinforcement groups will have more triggers that can spawn them. Certain chapters will have fewer dragon veins or have them in harder to reach places. In Revelation, enemies have higher stats overall. Promoted enemies are given the 2 skills from their respective base classes. In Echoes, normal mode is the game's standard difficulty. Enemy positions and stats are nearly identical to how they are in Gaiden. Then in hard mode, enemies have higher levels, making them stronger, but they also give player units more experience than in normal mode. There are more enemies overall, and many of them are given weapons and items to make them more dangerous. Promoted enemies become more common earlier on. In some cases, enemy positions can be different. Three Houses has normal mode, which is the standard difficulty. Enemies have few abilities apart from those innate to their class. Enemies that have combat arts or gambits are likely not to use them. Skirmishes have no activity cost, meaning the player can do as much as they want, allowing for infinite experience, gold, and other resources. In hard mode, enemies have higher levels, making them stronger. There are more enemies overall. Some are given different weapons, items, and battalions to make them more dangerous. Most enemies have additional abilities. Lots of enemies have different AI patterns. Experience gain is reduced. Skill experience gained from goals at the end of each in-game week is reduced. Skirmishes now cost an activity point, limiting the number of experience and gold you can get. Maddening mode was added into the game in a later update. Enemies have even higher levels, making them even stronger. There are more enemies overall. Some are given different weapons, items, and battalions to make them even more dangerous. Most enemies are given more abilities, gaining stronger versions of their weapons' skill level abilities, as well as some abilities that are not normally associated with their class, such as thieves having pass and generic archers having poison strike. Some enemies and bosses have different AI patterns. Enemies with combat arts and gambits are more likely to use them. Almost all the reinforcements appear at the start of enemy phase and can act that same turn. Hit rate penalties from using bows are adjusted, making them less accurate with the first space beyond 2 range. Experience gain is overall reduced. Skill experience gained from goals at the end of each in-game week is further reduced. Several paralogue chapters scale depending on progress through the story, with enemies becoming higher leveled the later the chapters are played. Finally, there is unused data for a higher difficulty than Maddening called Infernal. In Infernal mode, enemies would have much higher levels and stats than those in Maddening mode. And with that, that is the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.